call it a down pupils with past history of uveitis. You can remove this membrane, almost peel it out, and that will help in enlargement of the pupil intraoperatively. Viscomydriasis, especially with higher viscosity viscoelastics like Leon 5, etc., is another option. Pupillary stretch is an old technique, not really recommended, but it still has a role in some selected cases. And then there are various kinds of hooks and pupillary expanders or rings that are available, like iris retractors, Mulligan ring, and perfect pupil. So this is a video that shows the use of these different techniques. This is a video showing some of the techniques that can be used for managing these small pupils in different ways. Now, this is a small pupil here, as you can see. Performing a capsulorhexis is difficult, but it is still being done just within the iris margin. Here it is being done without a dye, but if there is poor glow and visualization is poor, it is a good idea to use dye-enhanced capsulorhexis. And if you're experienced, you can get around with a pupil like this, but of course all the steps become more difficult, the chances of complications increase. You have to do a slow motion phaco, use low parameters, use a low bottle height, and do a slow gentle phaco. But as you can see, it is difficult. Now here we are using Helon 5 to perform viscomydriasis. This is a super cohesive ophthalmic viscoelastic device, and the pupil was well enlarged using Helon 5. But as the case progresses and this Helon 5 is washed out of the anterior chamber, the pupil again starts becoming smaller. So you have to use keep re-injecting again, and when you re-inject, the pupil enlarges again. And you have to be very careful that you do a slow motion phaco so that you can retain the viscoelastic for a longer time. Do not have too much turbulence inside the anterior chamber. Keep your bottle height low so that the Helon stays, your viscoelastic stays for a longer time. Use low phaco, low fluidics parameters, and you can finish the case. And then, because you have used so much Helon 5, it is very important to remove all of that from the anterior chamber, and especially from behind the IOL, otherwise you would have post-op IOP spike. Then you could use Mulligan rings for managing small pupils. These are easily available now. This is the schematic diagram for a Mulligan ring. This is the actual ring that is being shown with the scrolls here. And this is the scroll. This comes with its own injector, and you inject it through the main incision itself. And once the Mulligan ring is inside the anterior chamber, you have to engage the iris in these 4 scrolls. Normally these 3 scrolls are still easy to engage, but the last scroll may be a little difficult or tricky, which is the subincisional scroll. Once all the 4 scrolls have engaged the iris, you get a well-dilated pupil, and the best part is that there is protection all around 360 degrees because of the Mulligan ring. So your iris margin is protected for 360 degrees. Then you can perform the phacoemulsification in a routine manner. This is the capsulorhexis being done. And you do your phacoemulsification. The pupil will stay enlarged, and the iris margin will also be protected for 360 degrees. In all these cases, it is important that you avoid any stress on the zonular complex, because with the pupillary margins, etc., with the pupil ring in place, there is additional stress also. And then you can put the IOL like you do for any other case. The advantage of Mulligan ring over iris hooks, etc., is that you don't have to make any extra incisions. It goes through the main incision itself, and it goes through that injector, so it is good, easy to implant inside the anterior chamber, and then you can take it out at the end through the same injector. Again, now, in all these cases, there would be a lot of viscoelastic that is being used, so you take care that you remove the viscoelastic from under the IOL. And once the case is complete, you use the same injector and you start removing these scrolls and put it back into the injector. Now, always these scrolls have to be removed first, because during the surgery, the iris may have become a little edematous. So it is now more tightly fixed. These scrolls are more tightly fixed. So you have to remove them very carefully, make the iris completely free, and then engage this scroll into the injector. If all of these scrolls are completely free, then once this scroll is well caught inside the injector, then the entire Mulligan ring folds up and comes out through the same incision, through the same injector. And it comes in 2 sizes of 6 and 7 millimeters, and you can use whichever you feel is more comfortable for you. Then iris retractors have been used for a very long time, and most of us have an experience with iris retractors. So they are still very useful. And but the disadvantage is that you have to make 4 additional incisions. These are the iris retractors that have been placed. Most people now prefer the diamond configuration rather than an ovoid configuration because this will allow you more space inferiorly where most of your phaco maneuvers take place. But the disadvantage would be that one of your iris hooks would be just below the incision, and this sub-incisional iris hook has a tendency to slip off while you are performing your phacoemulsification. So you take care that you don't rotate the globe too much, because if there is a lot of rotation of the globe, then there is a greater tendency for the iris hooks to come out. But if they do come out, you can just simply reinsert it. But now that you already have a capsular excess, so you have to be careful that you don't catch the capsular excess margin while you are placing the iris hooks. Now this is another case with a white cataract and a small pupil. And here we are using the pupillary stretch technique. Now pupillary stretch technique is not really recommended because it releases prostaglandins, which will cause increased postoperative inflammation. But in very few selected cases of thick fibrotic irides because of uveitis, this technique gives you good pupillary dilatation. However, we must remember that pupillary stretch technique should not be used for any cases of floppy iris syndrome, because if you stretch the floppy iris, it will become even more floppy and your problems during the surgery with iris prolapse, etc. will increase. But in these selected cases of thick fibrotic irides because of uveitis, you can do a little bit of pupillary stretch and then further enhance the dilatation with the use of viscoelastic. If we stretch too much, then we have a permanently dilated pupil. So we just stretch a little bit and then augment that dilatation with viscoelastic. Now this is the rexes being done. Dye enhanced rexes would be recommended unless you are very confident of performing it in such kind of cases. And then once this is used, you can perform the phacoemulsification as normal. And as I said, we must avoid iris stretch at all costs in cases of floppy iris syndrome to avoid further floppiness of the iris. Now this is Dr. Pandya also shown there is an option of using an intracameral preservative-free lignocaine to enlarge the pupil in some cases. It does give very good dilatation, but you have other techniques also to achieve dilatation. Now here this dilatation is being done only with the use of intracameral preservative-free lignocaine, and this can be used in cases where the patient may be allergic to some of the dilating drops, etc. It is good to remember that this is another option that you can use. And here there is a very good dilatation that has been achieved only with intracameral lignocaine and no other agent. And then you can do your phacoemulsification like in any other case. So the rexes, well-centered rexes, it is at the phacoemulsification, you do a phaco chop. Then there are other pharmacologic agents that you can of course use intraoperatively to supplement the dilatation. A combination of lignocaine and adrenaline called sugarcane is available in the West, but not here. But you can use intracameral preservative-free adrenaline that is available, and you can dilate the pupil during the surgery. Now there is another video which is of the perfect pupil, and this is another pupillary pupil expansion ring that is available. It is not easily available as of now. This is a perfect pupil. This is a schematic video. This ring again comes with its own injector, and it will give you a uniform pupillary dilatation as well as protection of the iris margin for the entire 360 degrees. This injector engages into one of the holes in the ring, and it straightens up like this into the injector. And then you can use the main incision to put it inside the anterior chamber. And it is like your capsule tension rings which you inject inside the anterior chamber. Once the ring is inside, then you take a manipulating instrument, put it into one of the holes and catch the iris with the loops that are made into this ring. And once you've done it for entire 360 degrees, your entire iris margin is protected, and you get a very good pupillary dilatation, and then you can get it back from the eye through the same injector. And this is a clinical video that shows the use of perfect pupil. This is the perfect pupil being injected into the anterior chamber through the injector. And once the entire ring is in the anterior chamber, where you put the remaining bit inside into the anterior chamber, and then you catch the iris into the loops, and your entire pupil can be enlarged for the surgery. Thank you.
Till the time Dr. Gaurav comes in. Okay, first I think this opportunity to invite all of you for tomorrow's course on toric intraocular lenses. So it's in Hall H, 11:30 a.m. Okay. Yeah, Dr. Gaurav has come. I'll just show this is a white cataract, intumescent cataract, and we all know that capsulorhexis is the major problem in these kind of cataracts. So I'll just show the technique I stain the capsule. We need to know that these intumescent cataracts, they are like dome. So if you have to walk on the dome, you have to be in the center of the dome, otherwise you may slip down. So what I call a sequential two-stage rhexis. Try to make a very small rhexis in the center, maybe 1.5 to 2 millimeters, with cystitome, and using the, look at this, the first initial nick and the liquid fluid is coming out. I use the microcapsulorhexis forceps to make a very small hole in the center. And after you have made a very small hole, then debulk the capsular bag. You just try to debulk by giving a nick with the needle. Those margins are very irregular, they may go in the periphery. But now we have very solid round regular margins. And you can see I'm putting this 26 gauge cannula from all the sides. This is an unedited video which I'm showing. And I go from side port and debulking nucleus here. And after you debulk, I make another side port and come from other side to debulk it all 360 degrees. And now I give a snip here with this micro scissors, which should be tangential. And after giving this snip with micro forceps, I can easily make a definitive capsulorhexis of the desired size. And you see, the surgeon can easily perceive that there is no pressure now in the capsular bag because you have debulked it. And after doing it, these cataracts are usually very soft and brittle. You can easily complete the phaco. So I was just waiting for Dr. Gaurav to come in. Dr. Gaurav, please welcome.
No, I see your concern.
Yeah.
Now we have from the other very easy experience management of white ratio and activation and how to perform phacoemulsification.
Mic नहीं काम कर रहा.
So now I invite Dr. Gaurav Luthra from Dehradun, who will be speaking on phacoemulsification in mature and hypermature cataract. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Very good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Suresh, for bearing with me. I was stuck in the other hall and couldn't find my way to this hall. I apologize for the inconvenience. And thanks for inviting me to be part of your course. And we always look up to your videos with a lot of awe. Now, Harshul was showing something similar, but I'll still go on. You do notice these things happen once in a while. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, this is when you start thinking about how you're going to manage these cases better to prevent this complication. Now, luckily in this situation, as you can see, this was a very soft cataract, and usually these cataracts are very soft, and sometimes it's not difficult to manage these cataracts. And in this patient was a young 25-year-old patient. There was almost no nucleus, so we ended up managing it quite easily by just aspirating, but that doesn't always happen. And there are situations where I have another video where you can encounter a very hard cataract along with a black sign, and which can really make life difficult. So these mature and hypermature cataracts can, especially the white ones which are intumescent, they can make life difficult for you, and you can devise several strategies to manage this. Of course, you must always try to get a rexus in place. Here we were lucky, as I said, and this was almost like the envelope technique we used to use for our extracapsulars 15-20 years back. And you can kind of fashion a rexus out of this, which you must always try to do, give a patient a good visual access, and the outcome is usually good in such cases when the cataract is relatively soft. Of course, always ensure that you have a well-formed. Now here I just pause this, and I don't know whether you can appreciate it, but some of these cataracts, and you typically see this kind of a cross kind of thing, and this is what makes me think about these cataracts being, these are the ones which will make you try to prevent a flag sign, because you can actually see on high-powered microscopic examination, sometimes the cortex is fluid and you can actually see those granules moving around, and if you try to appreciate it. And of course, it also helps to have measurements of your A scan around available and have a look at them before starting any of these cases. If you notice a very, very shallow anterior chamber, especially compared to the other eye, and if you notice that the lens thickness is a lot and it's intumescent, that can also kind of prepare you for managing these cases better and preempting them by doing something to prevent it. Now, here is something which is very simple, and I was doing it for many years before I moved on to something which I do now, which I also show you later. Through the main mode, you can actually initiate the rexus, and then, of course, I use the soft shell technique, and that really helps to ensure that your capsule is pushed down with heavy viscoelastic, and yet your cornea is protected. Now, you can aspirate with a regular, this is my hydrodissection cannula, which I used to use for many years to initiate a small cut with the 26 gauge cystotome, and then aspirate, and of course using a micro incision, my micro rexus forceps, especially from the side port, would be very useful. Here I'm using it from the main port, which is not a great idea. But subsequently, you'll see what I started doing. A few years back, I started using, of course, staining is very, very critical to these white cataracts. Whenever in doubt, even if you have a faint glow, I think there's no harm in doing the stain. It also tends to make the capsule a little more, a little more rigid, if you might want to call it like that. Now here, if you just notice what I've done is, I've stained it, I've formed stable nicely with the viscoelastic, and I'm using the main port using a regular 26 or a 30 gauge needle. I've initiated the puncture with that. This is not a bent cystotome as we normally use for rexus, it's just a straight regular needle. Gone from the main wound and made an entry, and as we are entering, you can start aspirating. This is on a 1 ml or a 2 ml syringe, and it's a very controlled aspiration, and the moment you enter, you start aspirating. It usually decompresses the lens well and doesn't give it a chance to have a runaway kind of situation like with the black sign. So here it goes, and you can see that I'm now decompressing the lens, and usually you'll be able to prevent some kind of runaway rexus as you saw in that previous case. So these intumescent cataracts require you to be extra careful. What I currently do is this. So similar to what we just did, stain the lens, and then rather than use the main port, I put viscoelastic, form the chamber nicely. Now, when we use the main port for any maneuver, we are automatically allowing some of the viscoelastic to escape. I go with the 26 gauge needles from a separate port. I create a new small side port, as you might want to call it, or paracentesis. And now my chamber is going to remain absolutely stable and initiate the small central puncture with this controlled way and do the aspiration. Now this doesn't allow any kind of lens iris diaphragm to move up, and your chamber is totally formed through the procedure, so it doesn't allow any fluctuations in the chamber and gives you ample time to decompress the lens and go with it. One very interesting video which I was trying to take along with expert today for the lack of quality of the video available with me was a technique which Uday Devgan uses, and I don't know if Suresh has done that, to go with the phaco tip facing down and give a burst of phaco bar. You showed that already. So that way you can actually create a small perfect PC lens, perfect sight as I like to call it, and which will not run somehow it wasn't fitting in. Now, one of the other, I hope you've not covered almost all these things because I'm sure through the course we've already done that, but let me just try to add what I can. And a spiral rhexis, as we've all learned over the years, is very, very useful. Now, the good thing is that if you can initiate a quick spiral rhexis, a smaller one, and then start running it around with a frill kind of thing, it usually helps because this rhexis will almost never run out. Once you've created one round is complete, and then you have just this frill left. Now, this frill will almost never run away because the forces are not conducive for it to run away. And if you're using adequate viscoelastic, you can take your time. You can patiently run it around twice, thrice, as many times as you would want it. Of course, you have to have patience for that. But obviously, with these hard cataracts and intumescent ones, you would need a bigger size rhexis. A small rhexis is not good to work with these hard cataracts. But these frills, you have to be a little careful. Sometimes they will, as you depress the posterior layer, these frills can come out and cause your rhexis to run away, and then it makes sense to trim this frill with a vana sometimes. So I think you got the idea that how to go with these spiral rhexis. I'll move on to the next video. Now this video was similar, and I was anticipating that this patient is intumescent. We stained the capsule, and I thought I would not need to decompress it with the 26 gauge needle, so I just went with my regular cystotome, and then I noticed that it is tending to run away. And I thought I'll add more heavy viscoelastic to ensure that my chamber is well formed, and then I was going to decompress it, but it didn't give me any time. Now, what was different in this case from the first one is that this is going to be a very hard cataract. And as you'll see here, I'm in a soup because this is a big nucleus, and it's not going to be easy to emulsify this or break this. So I'm trying to judge the size of the nucleus, and I was thinking if I can maybe just dial it out of the bag, because I didn't want to do any kind of chopping or cracking maneuvers inside the bag with this hard cataract, because it would immediately extend my break which is there in the intake capsule. I'm now engaging it with my picotape itself and easing it out of the bag, thinking that I might be able to get away with the ideal situation would probably be to convert immediately to an extra capsular or to an SICS, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm much more comfortable now with Phaco, so I decided I'll take my chances and see if I can just crack this into 2 or 3 pieces, and then life would be easier. So I did manage to accomplish these jobs, and I did accomplish I did manage to remove the whole cataract with holding my breath almost through the procedure. And at this point, when my nucleus was completely gone, I thought my job is done, and now I just need to implant the lens. And that's when you lose your, drop your guard, and that's when things go wrong. So I forgot about the basic dictum about managing such patients, because as you just watch out. I have removed most of the lens, and now I'm going to go for IA. And at this point, I make a mistake. I just come out without putting viscoelastic, and I have this was waiting to happen. So you can see this big strength here. If I just injected viscoelastic from the side or through the procedure, this never happened because I always had the infusion on, and I was able to manage this quite well through the procedure. You saw it was a very hard cataract, but we didn't have any problems with any kind of. I was avoiding all kinds of AC fluctuations. But now I'm in a soup, so at this point there's little that you can do. It's a big rent, and it'll be difficult to, since I don't have an intact rim either. We decide that we're going to just try to remove as much of the cortex as possible, and we just managed to remove the cortex. And here I decided, because for lack of a suitable lens, I decided not to go ahead with the implantation of a lens. I'm going to do a PI, so I enjoy doing these small PIs with the cutter, with the single cut. They are much easier than to struggle with our valvular incisions trying to get PIs otherwise. So got a PI. Now I came back to put in a secondary lens implant about a month later. You can see there's this wound is sutured here, single suture. What I realized is that when we went in prepared for putting in a secondary eye of some kind, maybe an SFI, we did assess this patient on the slit lamp. And as you probably see here, I'll probably zoom in here somewhere. Yes, you can notice that the size of the ring is only this much now, compared to what we had on the table. This is all fibrous, just 1 month or maybe a week over that. And it's all fibrous, and it gives me, there's no vitreous in the NK chamber, and it gives me the opportunity to just put in a lens. I would have probably gone in with an SFI in the first place if I had done a primary surgery. At the time of that surgery, I would have either put a retrofixated iris jaw or maybe an SFI or a glued IOL, but see, just waiting for a month and uncomplicated come back and implant. I'm not recommending that we do this every time, but because it is after all a second surgical intervention, here we just got lucky. Now, this just requires me to inject the lens into the thing and get it over with. Now, typically the ideal lens to put here is a multi-piece lens, and single-piece lenses are totally contraindicated in these situations because of the studies showing a lot of complications with the single-piece lenses. But we have now a study which is to be under publication now, where we compared single-piece lenses with the multi-piece lenses. Now, this is a hydrophilic lens. Almost all the studies which have shown, I think Suresh can add to this, are all with hydrophobic lenses, and single-piece designs are totally no in the sulcus. But we now have about 230 or 40 hydrophilic lenses in place over the last 7 years, and we have done a comparative study with another 200 odd multi-piece lenses, and we found that risk of complications is almost similar for CME, for all the other iris complications that you might see with hydrophobic. So what we've kind of realized is that lenses are definitely more friendly. They're probably not the best choice, but when in a soup or when starting up a situation, you can probably go ahead, but pending more publications and more work on this. So this is how we managed to save the day here. I think this video is basically a pediatric cataract, where I was wanting to show a little more of the spiral plexus. Let me just see here. Yes. So now this was a 6 months or 1 year old child, and I will just show that how a spiral plexus can be done very effectively, because pediatric cataracts are always more tricky, and I really enjoy doing pediatric cataract surgery. So it's always a challenge to get your nexus right, because if you don't have a nexus intact, then the rest of the surgery is going to be totally unpredictable. So here you will just notice I'm going to finish. I'll just run it forward for you. You have to be, of course, patient, use the right viscoelastic. Let me bring up the point where we go for our second round. Now we've already created this nexus, and I think that this nexus is small, so I decide to just take it around for another go. And you know that these pediatric ones, the capsule is very elastic and can run away in any direction without much provocation. But you'll see that if you're patient enough, this nexus will never run anywhere. As you can see here, I'm going to go back to viscoelastic. It just stays there. So if you've accomplished one round, even if it's a small one, the second or the third round is always very easy to do, and it's not challenging. As you can see here, it's almost like getting in the capsule. I should take you to the end of this. So you can actually go right as many rounds as you want, just to demonstrate that how easy it is to control these situations, unlike most pediatric cataracts which you might want to come up with this. I think with that, I'll stop and let's see it better.
Thank you.
Method of Morgantin, which I told Suresh I wanted to show here, dancing to Morgantin, but my video was not playing properly, so I left.
Thank you very much for excellent presentation. I have questions. One question which I would like to ask you, that in white cataract, sometimes once you come across this fibrotic capsule, then how you manage those capsules?
I think I left out that video as well, but fibrotic cataracts, I have got several strategies to manage the fibrotic capsules. So what we've been doing is I make use, in fact, I have a video of I think I have one. So I do use little, I use the MVR, I use the manas, I use the cutter sometimes, you have to combine.
Yeah,
We can answer it because I'll have to.
I have a question to Gaurav.
Yes, sir.
Gaurav, what I saw you putting in one-piece IOL into the sulcus, your point is that it is a hydrophilic lens, and you are doing a study. But the point against putting an IOL, one-piece IOL, into the sulcus is not the hydrophilic or hydrophobic. It is that the haptics are very bulky, they touch the iris behind, and they do not have an angulation. That is why the optic is straight away behind the iris. So these are the 2 points which tell us that you should not put in one-piece IOL into the sulcus. But you can do it, provided you can capture the optic into the intact capsular axis. So that way you can push the lens behind the by providing this one. So that is one point. Number 2 point about, you have spoken about white mature cataract, but one aspect is here, that is the phacoemulsification in Morganian cataract. So in Morganian cataract, the problem is not with the rexes because there is no eye intralendicular pressure, but the problem is the phacoemulsification. The lens capsular bag is so fragile, it is so collapsing that most of the time while you do phaco, it comes out. It comes out into the phaco teeth and many times you So what we do in our cases, in big Morganian cataract, very degenerating lens capsular bag, we put a IOL, like a scaffold. We put an IOL, put the IOL over the whole lens capsular bag and do the phaco in the anterior chamber under a lot of discourse.
So you put your lenses actually, the scaffold
On the surface of the eye.
Okay.
I could have put it in the bag itself, but what I found is that if I put it in the bag and do the phaco, there will be again lots of turbulence that will put the bag down.
Yeah, so a lot of strategies can be used, having a slightly smaller rexes, using Discord or some kind of good viscoelastic to fill up your chamber, not allowing too much of turbulence in the anterior chamber, so, and you're using high vacuum to ensure that you are able to, even the tip can be modified so that you get a better hold on the nucleus. In fact, that's exactly what I would have shown in that video, but for some reason that video didn't get edited properly and I was able to. This is another fibrotic. And sir, about the, I fully agree with you that about the lens material. What I wanted to highlight here is that all the studies which were done with the hydrophobic lenses, the haptic design, the haptics are much more bulky and thicker than what you would get with the hydrophilic lenses. And hydrophilic haptics are definitely
here is quite
this is a radar lens where the haptics are not as much bulky as the AIOC or the other lenses. Almost all the studies with the single piece designs have been done with the AIOC hydrophobic lenses, which haptics are definitely more troublesome to the iris. So even circumflex is a single piece design which is made for
circumflex has an angulation.
Yes, and even the design is also different for the haptics. It doesn't irritate the iris too much. So I agree with you, but that's why I said it's pending further studies and we still have to see. So this was a fibrotic capsule. I hope this is the one which I wanted to show because you can see that it was very tough to create that initial nick as well because of the fibrotic changes in that capsule, and I'm struggling to initiate my rexes. Now I use the MVR. This is my. Sometimes it works. You just have to have initially created first. The puncture is much easier to do with the MVR, but see it didn't work. Now I've gone in with the Vanas trying to fashion initiate the rexes at least, and I've managed to create that initial. So it's not necessary that the whole capsule will be fibrous. You will have some areas which are fibrous and calcified, other areas will be normal. So once you've gone beyond the area which was more fibrous or capsule was with more changes of calcification or fibrosis, you can start initiating a change. Now sometimes you'll have a wrinkle, you'll have that kind of a wrinkle here, and those are the places where you have to be really careful because there if you try to pull it too hard, it'll just run into the periphery. So be when you see this patient, but this was again a pediatric cataract patient moved under general anesthesia suddenly. But so here we've managed to do this, but probably here I decided that the rexus size is too small and maybe I think I'm going to enlarge it further. So you just notice that fibrotic capsule, and now I'm going to try and enlarge it further. And in the second round again I faced some problems trying to. So you have to be very careful about the forces you are using, and of course force in the wrong direction can just easily run this rexus out. Of course, even if this rexus does run out, it's not the end of the day because these rexus, they're still, as they are very significantly fibrous, you may still be able to complete your surgery and put in a lens in the back. So rarely, yes, if this rexus does run out, don't panic. You can still probably complete the rexus by using Vanas and closing it and then putting in your lens after removing the nucleus you can put in. So last part here, because it was not finishing, I'm using the Vanas. So while this is not a continuous curvilinear rexus, but you can see that it has still saved the day for us, and the lens does manage to go into the back. And of course, when doing these cataracts, it's always good to use a hydrophobic lens. It opens slowly, gives you the time to position your haptics into the bag and I think we were able to. So I hope this was able to.
Thank you, Dr. Gaurav. Any question? Otherwise, the time is over. would like to thank all the participants and the faculty of this course. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you.
I am the course director of this course, like email session. Our session number is 386. Generally, we speak of the management of data system from function to valve of assessment. I just invite all that my instructors, one of my research first this comes and it is Saptagiris, it is Shandu, it is Saurabh, it is Porva, that is Saurabh Sharma. Please come. So in our course, we will include the topics like the panel discussion. Obstruction of the airflow systems includes from contact to valve of listener. So it includes generally upper electrical data system. So it's a very basic. There may be some students. So I just once pumped up and canalicular. Most of the time, maybe the cause may be in the region, and it may be a lower electrical system in electrical stick or electric. So though we most of the time we overlook in those such situations that drainage system failure or taking for a maybe because of this, in such scenario we can go for a punctectomy or MMTB division, we can help. Lacrimal puncture lies 6 mm from the medial canthal angle facing the lacrimal neck. As the advances, the puncture faces upwards and slightly outwards, which may be the cause of punctal stenosis. Or maybe chronic conjunctivitis and some other may be cause for punctal stenosis. This is one of the interesting case. There is a foreign body, this ISS was in the upper punctum and it erode the lower punctum. So both way, so there is a epiphora, there is a, in a fluorescence is nice and once you remove and you should take care in the lower punctum because for at least maybe 7 days to couple of weeks or maybe month plus eroded in future you may need a punctectomy also in such cases. So this may be the cause. In my area, this type of in both the one in foreign body ISS in the lower punctum usually in 3 cases till now. So treatment is the first is just remove this and can take care for the lower punctum. So regarding the evaluation kit, that one of the commonest cause for like fail PCR following a good surgery is that as per the international standard or whatever other publication, that is preoperative, poor preoperative evaluation, like if there is some canalicular stenosis or something or canalicular pathology, maybe one of the causes, a good anastomosis there may be some problem. So those are the evaluation scale. Endoscope is always in a foreign detectors or endoscopy should be there first. So we can bypass the EEG observation and with the help of the punctum dilator and probe we can diagnose if there is any obstruction before the set. This is very some doubtful cases, we may need this type of thing, dacrylocystography. But most of the time we can overcome. This is the diagnostic step like that. We can dilate the punctum, then with the help of, we need one plastic ruler and with a plastic ruler, or we can use a caliper also, but base this plastic ruler and one forceps. Straight we can dilate the punctum, then after dilation we can introduce the proprioceptor, soft stop, so there is a canalicular obstruction. So no need for any dacrylocystography, nothing. Straight away for the upper punctum, lower punctum, we can do. If there is a hard stop with a clear foot regurgitation, straight away we can go for a PCR surgery. There is a surgical landmark, Dr. Sora will speak all. Those are the major cases, and because it is a post-punctectomy cases. Punctal agenesis, the treatment is no tear substitute, no not other causes. There may be association of conjunctivitis, there may be allergic conjunctivitis, there may be some other causes, there may be meningitis, but ultimately we need a punctectomy. There is a surgical tools and technique, and we can augment it with MMC, mitomycin C, or with a MMQ. So, this type of obstruction, if it is from the sac or in NLDO, so PCR. But if that cause is like that, then sometimes nowadays we can go for endoscopic some surgery or canaloplasty with the intubation along with PCR or without tissue. I will speak later on those things. But there might be some other causes. Most of the time, this type of picture is generally as per our medical college is seeing in our post position or undergraduate. So this is a dacrylocystagmus, or it may be a which is risk of epiphora. But still Roplus negative and is to a little bit not so much favorable the chronic or acute dacrylocystagmus. So I keep the syringing to the upper punctum after evaluating excluding of acute dacrylocystagmus. I just syringing was freely patent, and I advised for a CT scan. And CT scan there was some cyst-like lesion, and I just the radiologist just rang me, and again I confirmed it's a diagnosis. So we thought it is a diagnosis. Again we advised for a contrast, and this is the thing, and this is the intraoperative finding, and ultimately this is a epidiagnosis. So around the set, it may be the cause of epiphora. So not all the cases. If those cases we can think for a anti-dacrylocystagmus, so that may be a problem. So is it a mucosa? But there is a radius is there, inflammation is there. Again, there is a doubt. So I advise for a CT scan. There is some cyst-like lesion. So I just opening up like a DCT operation, and something like this, and there is an inflammatory lesion was there. So just in my mind, I just cut on that thing. It is a comes out like this, a worm, and it does just like transfer to the one is saline solution is moving. That worm, a live worm, is a very long one, live worm is moving. And same for histological examination, and we take care of the zoologist, and this is I ultimately diagnosed with chalagia. There are so many other options for canalicular, basal catheterization, leather canalicular, all others. I will speak later. Now I invite my other speaker, like
canalicular tear management. Canalicular laceration is the most frequent type of injury to the lacrimal system. It can be direct, like in dog bites or sharp object, etc., or it can be indirect. Sometimes it could go to the face, like blunt weapon injuries and all. Now, coming on to a little bit about the surgical anatomy. The iliac margin have a large palpebral portion and a small lacrimal portion. And in the junction is like the area of interest, because that is the weaker part. Now, if you see this picture, like if we remove the skin and the orbicularies, we will find the medial canthal ligament. The medial canthal ligament, just behind it, we have the canticular. So this is like what we know while repairing it. Okay? Now, the injury can be occult or obvious. So what we need is a high index of suspicion required in all cases of iliac or medial canthal injuries. Now this is an occult here. As you can see, like the picture, it's not very obvious, but like on cable, like there is a clear full thickness cut. Now there are some obvious, these are photographs of some obvious injuries to the lacrimal system. Now why treat? To avoid watering, number one, and number two, to avoid abnormal appearance of the medial canthal area. As you can see in the case, like this is an old scarred one, where you can see a traumatic telecanthalus with a notch in the lacrimal leg. And it becomes difficult to repair also later. Now, 80% of drainage is through the lower canticle in most of the cases. Now, how to proceed? History taking, meticulous history taking is very important. Time and mode of injuries, associated injuries, and very meticulous slit lamp examination. Time of intervention, the best is immediate, or in case of cross edema, after 36 to 48 hours. The best results is always seen when it's repaired within 5 days. Surgical procedures. The canticular appositions and repair over a stent till the periclinicular inflammation subsides decreases the risk of stenosis. So the stenting can be done nowadays with a mini monoca, self-retaining mini monoca, silicone bicanalicular intervention set, or an indigenous method of IV cannula, which is cheap. The principle of repair: identification of the cut ends, approximation of the cut ends and stenting, retention of the stent for adequate period of time to maintain patency. Now, how to localize the medial cut end? This is the question of interest. What we need is a good illumination and high magnification. Generally, the medial cut end is seen as a shiny white cup of rolled out edges. Now, if you don't see that, then what we can do, like passage of the probe in normal anatomical orientation, usually at a high magnification, we are able to find it in most of the cases. But there is another method like the Morrison method, but where what we do is we pull over the lacrimal leg with a fluid. Then we inject air from the opposite punctum. Now we look for the air bubble to come out. Like then that is the area. Some people they use injection of dye, but this is messy. And some people they use pictorial probe, but that is a little bit traumatic. Now these are some sequential pictures like which will give you the surgical steps. I'll show the video at the end. Now this is the obvious cut-in. Now the stenting. What we do while stenting, we use a 22 gauge cannula, IV cannula. We blunt the stillet and then we pass it on through the medial cut-in also. Securing the cut-ins over the stent, which is important again. We secure it with a pericanalicular sutures of Vicryl 80, 3 sutures of such, and then also like the marginal repair with 60 nylon or silk. Now the question comes of fixing the stent. Otherwise the stent will come out. Now how to fix it? We use a double arm roll-in 60, and we fix it to the periocular orbicularis with a medial fraction. So as you can see, like that other side, the whole thing is towards the we put it medially so that it doesn't come out externally. Because we have to maintain this for at least 6 weeks to 3 months. Now this is the post-operative picture of the patient. Now this is a short video. As you can see, you have to dilate it. Then you can give a snip if it's difficult to pass the probe. Now the medial, we pass through the medial, cut them. Now these are the pericanalicular sutures. We give 3 pericanalicular sutures. This is a double cap, and actually there are 2 lacerations. Now this is a vertical mattress to repair the margin. since there's the double leaf laceration, what we need to do after this, we have to repair the other curtain also. Now, the same way we pass 3 vertical matrix switches for the other curtain. This is what switches we give for the tarsal repair as well as the for the connector. Now coming on to the fixation of the stent. This is a double arm rolling sutures that we pass through the peri oblique orbital areas, and you can tie it over the bolster also, but the second one has to be tied over the bolsters. Now this is for the medial traction. Now this is the end of the circuit. We remove this after 3 months, where we can remove the skin sutures after 7 days. These are the pre-operative and the post-operative pictures. And this is like the same way if both the cannular are involved, then we can a double intubation also. This is with a mini monoca. Here is a self-retaining one, so you take the mini monoca, identify the cuttings, pass it through the initial cutting, then through the medial cutting, and just have to tuck it, as you will see in this video. This is now like we are tucking that proximal part in the puncture, and we give 2 sutures in like the orbicularis and the skin sutures in the end. Now the primary repair can restore both leg functions and position. If lacerated cannuliculi are not repaired primarily, the lateral obstruction is difficult to correct and may require a conjunctival TCR with a glass tube implant subsequently. I would like to invite you all to the AIOC conference that we have in Delhi from 26th to 28th. Thank you.
How you are going to repair the rupture of the cannulicula, anterior wall rupture of the cannulicula? Yeah, from both sides, suppose. Middle side and lateral side. There is a cut cannulicula. So you are passing that is a here and there. But if there is a damage to the wall, anterior wall.
No, that is when we are passing the stent, we are repairing the pericannulicular area. We are not hitting on the wall. We have to
suppose wall is damaged, rupture, cannulicular wall.
Like that depends like how much is the extent. Like if it's very severe, there are cases where like the cannulicular, you're not able to find out. Then it's a little bit difficult. But the thing is, like if there is a cannulicular wall rupture, and if you can identify it, which is I think possibly a little bit difficult, then we can just trim it off and then depose it. Just like a tube, like a full tube, it's like ruptured here, so we cut it to 2 ends, bring it closer, suture it.
His question was probably, you were talking about the vertical sneering of the cannuliculus. If it is obliquely cut, cutting the cannuliculus, bifurcating the cannuliculus, is not it?
Yeah.
Bifurcating the cannuliculus in a horizontal way. Suppose the cannuliculus is open, like you do goniotomy intraventricular surgery. Just like that, if it happens like that, how will you treat it?
The same way, I guess.
I want to have a few points regarding your question. This is a very rare occasion. That means if patient is very unlucky, it may happen. But now it is with MMT, which is not possible by any other previous method. With mini monoca tube, if you can. But first point is if we can identify distal cannulicular end, then first is the distal cannulicular end, then you can assess the other point. If it's less, then you can repair by the E0. E0 you can repair. First you can insert both the proximal and distal lens. Then you just assess what is the thing. Then you can with a 10-0 bulb you can try. In nylon you can try like a fallopian tube repair. It's like a fallopian tube repair. You can try to repair if possible. Otherwise, still not possible. You can try oppose the anterior, that is a pericanalicular tissue. It will help. If possible, over the minimonoca, you can suture by 10-0. Still not, you are not satisfied, you are not possible, then you can try the pericanalicular pipe. It will help. This is the only options in your insertion.
Just 1 minute.
How will you identify the medial ends of the canaliculi if there is both superior and inferior canalicular lacerations?
First of all, that each and every surgery we should do under good microscope. Not is more good, very good microscope. Microscopic surgery is a totally microscopic surgery. So if we do, if it is a phrase, it's very easy. I have some video and I will. And if it is a phrase within 20 minutes, it's generally easy. With the lacerated wound, or sometimes it's difficult. There are lots of technique to identify, but base is you can just try to reoppose both the wounds and see the observe on the other tissues, pericanalicular tissue. If you can identify the pericanalicular tissue, and then you can identify the canalicular. If not, you can regulate a little trim. Then you can identify, and once you identify, it's easy.
One very simple thing, in the repair as well as in the assessment before the repair, you always oppose the grey line of the leaf margin, and then you will not be confused about which one is superior canalicular problem, which one is inferior canalicular problem. If you can oppose the grey line of the leaf margin, both sides, then the picture will be crystal clear. It's not usual to us.
Yeah, actually, that is what I said, like the normal orientations of the canaliculars with the group we have to find out. Actually, one thing, when both the canaliculars are involved, then it becomes a little bit difficult if it's an old case. It's more than 25.
Thank you. Regarding that question, sir, regarding the anterior wall of the canaliculus is damaged or any of the walls are damaged. So one option is if you can take conjunctiva itself, small, because what happens when you have an anterior canalicular injury, the system, basically all of the system is gone. It is almost impossible to replace it just by suture. Because when you suture it, the subsequent scarring is going to always close the region, always, guaranteed, because it's going to narrow down. So one option is to use conjunctiva itself. So the same eye is going to be difficult in an acute trauma, so you can borrow from another eye. The thin layer of conjunctiva, if you can find even through a thin layer of existing canalicular tissue, you put a tube and put the conjunctiva over it. So, and conjunctiva is put the reverse way, not the way the epithelium should be facing the tube. So that is one thing. And of course, amniotic membrane, the problem is once it's absorbed, you're back to square one. The subsequent fibrosis is going to close on everything.
Sir, is it imaginary or have you performed this type of operation? What is your experience?
No.
Practically. Theoretically is all right.
So I just done one case. That's why I'm able to say that. But these are so rare and you get them once in a lifetime if you're lucky enough. This was one experience where I was able to put conjunctiva. I was also able to share my experience on that. Thank you.
In our part, in oculoplasty, most of the time we need this for our lifetime. There's lots of process, lots of procedures. We are not lucky like in IOL surgeon, decorative surgeon. There's a same model guy. Our model is a fast model, so we may adjust it. This is one. Thanks, Nicola. And our next speaker is Salu Bagedas. He is a consultant in Satyankaram Hospital. He will speak with one important conjunctival endostomy endoscopy. It's a rare procedure. She will speak on that.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Das for including me in this session. My topic, as Dr. Das told, is a conjunctival declusive rhinostomy. we all know it's a procedure in which a new lacrimal passage is created from the conjunctival sac to the nasal cavity with the insertion of a bypass tube. This procedure was pioneered by Lester Jones in 1962, and since then various modifications have been described in the literature, especially after the introduction of the endoscope and canalicular endoscopes. The procedure is mainly indicated in cases of symptomatic persistent epiphora, which is obstruction of both the canalicula, which is less than 8 mm. It could be because of congenital or acquired causes, and the traumatic and the idiopathic group is the most common causes. As already stressed, evaluation is very necessary in all the cases. A detailed history, which should include the history of prior trauma or any surgery. Syringing and probing is a very simple procedure, and it helps us in locating the site of obstruction. And once we have decided that we need to continue with the conjunctival DCR, we should perform a nasal endoscopy, which is an important method for the nasal examination. It helps us to rule out any nasal pathology like intranasal tumors, which is a contraindication for conjunctival DCR. And it's important to assess the space also between the lateral nasal wall and the septum, so that we have enough space for the tube. The materials which are used for this bypass as a bypass tube are very many, like polyethylene tubes, Pyrex glass tubes, Met4, silicone, some have used mucous membrane grafts also. Each of them have their own merits and demerits. Polyethylene tubes are easily available and they can be shaped in the OT itself, but they have the disadvantage that they have the frequent mucus plugging and they have the poor capillarity. Pyrex glass tube, this is universally used and most commonly being used. It causes less irritation, has good capillary action, and does not clog easily with the secretions. However, this has its own limitation, that is difficulty in availability, and the cost is a limiting factor. In our center, we use the indigenous borosilicate glass tube, which was a study conducted under Dr. Grover. In this, it was prepared with a glass blower. It has a flange and a bevel for a good capillary action. The internal diameter is 1 mm, the external is 2.5 mm, and the length varies according to the size required. I'll be first describing the surgical technique of the conventional CDCR, which is combined with the external DCR. After performing the external DCR and making the flap, the anterior and the posterior flaps, and the posterior flaps when sutured, the canonical is infiltrated with xylopine and adrenaline, and the carenculectomy is performed. Then we pass a 18 or a thicker bore needle, or we can pass, once the tract is created with the bore needle, like we pass the needle intromedially from conjunctiva to the nasal cavity. The tract is enlarged either with a 1 Dreyfus knife, or you can use the 15 degree knife. And then we see a Bowman's probe, which is passed from the tract into the nasal septum. Then we measure the size of the length of the tube which we need to anchor in the sac. But we should limit the size of about from 2 to 3 mm, less than this measured length, because we don't want the tube shoot but the nasal septum. This is a tube being placed in the conjunctival sac, and after placing this tube, we suture the anterior flap and close this wound. This is a small video showing the same procedure. After doing the incision and making an osteotomy, then we create the flap. This is the sac flap being created. This is the posterior flap, and this is the anterior sac flap, and then the nasal mucosal flaps are being formed. And once the posterior flaps are sutured with a pyovital suture, then we do the carenculectomy and the needle is passed into the nasal cavity. Once we are sure that the needle is in the right track, we enlarge the track with the this 1 Dreyfus knife, and then measure the length of the tube. So the tube chosen is about 2 to 3 mm less than the measured length, And then the 5-Chlorine suture is used to anchor the tube. There are various methods by which we can anchor the tube, but we pass the chlorine suture to the lumen so that it prevents the slippage of the tube. Once we are sure that the tube is in the right position, we perform the syringing to check the patency, and then it is anchored to the skin so that it does not extrude or get lost to the nasal cavity. The post-operatively, the patients are prescribed systemic antibiotic, anti-inflammatory agents, cytotoxicity, topical antibiotic steroid drop, and nasal decongestant. They are always instructed not to close their nose. They should sterilize the tube before sneezing and should practice the reverse Valsalva. And strong follow-up is required as they may have obstruction or the exclusion of the tube. We have seen in our hands the surgical results are about 90 to 95%, but however we can see the complications also. That tube obstruction is very common with the mucus due to the mucus plugging, or the conjunctiva may override over the tube. Exclusion of the tube may also occur, and sometimes the granulation formation is occurs which needs to be resected. In literature, the various modification has also been occurred in the procedure. Like they have various designs of the bypass tube which to prevent the exclusion, to reduce the exclusion rate. And with the introduction of the minimally invasive procedures and the use of endoscopy CTCR has also been attempted. Along with the laser CTCR has also been tried. And this is the upcoming thing, the endoscopically assisted transcalentular CTCR, which is without the DCR procedure. The modification, as I have told in the tube, this is like a Gladstone Guterman tube and this angle extended Jones tube. This has a slant and this has an angle. So to reduce the exclusion rate of the tube, these modifications have been done. In endoscopic CTCR, the internal anestomy is created endoscopically and then the sac is opened and the Jones tube is implanted as to the conjunctiva and is anchored. This I have searched the literature and found that the laser DCR have also been tried. In this they have used a large bore needle and the laser probe is passed through this and the laser this bony osteotomy is made and then the tube is anchored. However, the most promising thing which is coming up and it's more functional and aesthetic is the endoscopically guided transcalentular Jones tube and which is without the DCR procedure. You don't need to perform the external DCR with this. It has the advantage that it is less time consuming, there is no facial scar and the success rate of 80 to 90% have been observed. This is a small video of the same procedure. This large bore needle is being passed conjunctivally, inframedial in the conjunctival sac after doing the carunclectomy. And then the lacrimal bone is penetrated through this between the lacrimal sac and nasal mucosa. And once you are sure that you have in the right position and check endoscopically, you anchor the tube with the chlorine suture as shown. And now with the help of the Bowman probe, the bone is being placed in the conjunctival sac. Now with the help of endoscope, we are seeing that the tube is well in position. But the middle turbinate is abutting this tube. So in this procedure, we have done the middle turbinectomy. So the nasal examination is also very important in these stages. This is a post-operative patient of the same patient, the post-operative photograph of the same patient. Just to conclude, I just want to stress that with the advancement and the development of the canalicular procedures like transcanalicular endoscope and trepanation which is available to us, but they have their own difficulties and failure, and thus the conjunctival DCR is the gold standard treatment for the proximal lacrimal obstruction. Thank you.
From the audience, if any, please, you can ask Dr. Salu conjunctive disease.
What is the maximum period for which you can keep the tube there in the conjunctival disease?
It can be lifelong. There is no maximum period.
It may be
Lifelong.
lifelong.
This is a permanent tube.
Suppose it is taken out, so it will follow fistula tract. So what is the need to keep there lifelong?
But the fistula tract may close if it is excluded early. Maybe after 5-10 years there may be fistula.
What I mean, after 6 months, suppose you have taken the tube, glass tube, then it will follow fistula tract,
But
open permanently.
No,
So what is the
close
sense
also.
to keep that in the foreign body of the glass made for a lifelong?
It may close also after some time. We are not very sure that it may be a permanent fistula tract.